Hello, and welcome to She Rises, the podcast where women in leadership take center stage. I'm Tiffany-O, your host and the founder of Virtual Partner, where we champion humanity in the workplace to build thriving organizations. With over 30 years of experience in change management and servant leadership, I'm here to bring you powerful stories, actionable insights, and inspiring conversations with trailblazing women who are breaking barriers and redefining success. Whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, leading your own venture, or looking for that next level of impact, this is your space to learn, to grow, and to rise. Let's dive in. Today, I'm uber excited to have Lynnette Berger here with me on the She Rises podcast. Now, Lynnette is a leader in finance transformation, known for her ability to drive strategic change and innovation within the financial sector. With a wealth of experience in transforming financial operations and enhancing organizational efficiency, Lynnette brings a unique perspective to leadership and change management. Her journey is a testament to the power and vision and determination in navigating complexities in the finance world. Let's dive into her journey and discover the transformative insight she has to share with us. Welcome, Lynnette.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. I'm so happy to be with you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And Lynnette, since the moment I met you, you were one of those women who welcomed people in the workplace. You were a mentor, you were accessible, available, and honest. And I always respected that those qualities in you as a leader. So I'm really excited to have a little more time with you today. So can you walk some of us who are listening and don't know you as well, walk us through sort of what inspired you to specialize in finance transformation and what challenges you encountered along the way? And we should distinguish when we're talking about finance, she wasn't necessarily in banking. She's got the whole gamut. So walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, so to be honest, I kind of fell into it. I had aspirations to go to med school,
Mm,
and I had been also an exchange student in the Netherlands. And while I was an exchange student, my parents went their separate ways, and my father took all of his funding with him. And so there I was in a foreign country, not sure what my next step was going to be,
mm,
knowing that I certainly couldn't afford, a pre-med education at a Ivy school or for any school at that matter at that point, and had the my first sort of true mentoring experience where I finally came home during the summer thinking, what am I going to do with my life? And my first mentor, I was working at a pharmacy, and he
mm.
said, you can put yourself through school. I'll teach you how to trade stocks and bonds. And I said, what is that? And so he took me under his wing and showed me how to do that, and then said, okay, I want you to, how much money did you earn this summer? I want you to invest that money, and I'm going to invest the same amount, and we're going to do that for a year, and at the end of the year you're going to show me your statement, and I'm going to show you mine, and if you outdid me, then I will, you come back, you work for me, I'll double your salary, and if don't, you have to come back and work for me anyways, but you get paid the same thing you got paid this year. So there was there was no real downside for me.
Mm.
And for anybody who knows and understands investing, they'll know that, investing in the US and investing overseas where I was is two very different experiences. But at
Mm.
the end of the year, I did beat him, not by much, but by enough that he just, and he would be the guy that would talk me through things, and that was my first mentor. And so it was very natural to take what I had learned, not at a university, but apply it in that setting. So I was able to get a scholarship in the Netherlands.
Mm.
And there I studied economics and business management and international law. And at the end of that parlayed into my first real job at a large banking investment firm. So
Wow. I find it, I think there are a couple lessons to take away just from this story. Number one, resilience. So life was giving you lemonades and lemons, and you were like, I'm gonna make lemonade. And your mentor told you to drink that lemonade with a flair.
yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And And it was, you find mentors in the oddest places. That's the other thing I would say is like, I would have never expected this gentleman to kind of take me under his wing,
Mm.
but he saw something in me that obviously somebody else didn't, and said, "Oh, I'm going to see what happens with that." And so it was really a fantastic experience. And to this day, I'm forever grateful for him for actually giving me a path or showing me a path that I didn't even know was there. I thought that was, pretty cool.
I think
And
this.
then from there, it was just curiosity. Was
Mm.
in the investment side of the house as an analyst for a while, and then a portfolio manager and all kind of a fund manager. But at one point, I missed closure. Right, if you're doing that kind of work, you have one day a year to enjoy it. That's January 1st because the markets are closed. And then you start again. And it's hard to see the end product because there really isn't one, right? It's just, the door's always open. You're always like trying to get through that door. And I had an opportunity where we were having some difficulties with this particular type of client base. And they said, geez, we'd love somebody to just figure out what to do with this because we're not sure. And I raised my hand and went, oh, I'll do that because it was something new, right? It was something different, and I thought I could learn from it. And so we applied what we call the Disney method to a
Mm.
very high risk client base. And I learned all about the Disney method, which is, the down at the, what does Walt Disney do when they have customers that are not happy, right? And so we applied that method actually to the asset management side of the business. And lo and behold, we went from about an 80% retention rate to a 99.6, in a matter of
Wow.
about 2 years. It was really amazing. And that was the first sort of aha moment for me that I love really working with a team,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of analyst work, you're digging into numbers yourself and you're making decisions. And it feels more in a vacuum. You're not really collaborating. You're collaborating in a different way. There's collaboration, but it's in a very different way.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved working with people, both internally and outside, right, with our clients. And anything new that you want to implement, there is a people component to it. It does not matter what it is. We are all in a people business, and it does not matter what business that is, right? It's
Mm.
either about the people inside or the people outside or a combination of both. And I love working with people. And I
Mm.
love taking teams that were struggling and turning them around. And so that was my passion. And that drove all of the career decisions really that I've made since then. And it was always opportunity, it was always like in a very curious, opportunistic way, like, hey, we have this opportunity. And I'm like, oh, I've never done that before. I'll do that. And so I've woven my way through product management, through investment management, building an economic risk lab for a large bank, rebuilding an entire asset management team that had gone through some tragedy and new processes, to, hey, we don't know what to do with this system, and we've had 3 consultants in and they all sort of tell us kind of the same thing, but we don't know which one to choose. And looking across that and saying, well, we can build this team to do right and to move things forward. So it's always been like, for me, something new
Mm.
that I haven't done before, that I was curious about, that drove my career path.
I admire what I'm hearing, and I think a lesson that I'm taking away is first, resilience. Number two, accepting help from unlikely locations and accepting a path that you didn't design yourself, but being curious enough to explore what that might mean for you and what gaps you might be able to fill. And then I think the next piece of this that I'm taking away, Lynnette, is you iterated, right? So it started out as one thing. You had no idea what the end product was really going to be or what it was going to take to get there, but you continued to reinvent along the way by raising your hand and redefining your skill set by taking on things that you were uncomfortable doing. You got really
Yeah.
good at being uncomfortable. And as women, opportunities sometimes the ones that we go looking for aren't there and other ones present themselves. And that is the moment. That's our moment to rise. So
I really celebrate you doing that. And I think there's a lesson here for mentors too. And that is when you see someone struggling that has potential, not high performer, potential. Why not try to see how you can develop and nurture that potential? And you might end up with a Lynnette Berger. Oh my goodness, how great would that be? And look at the ripple effect in terms of your paying it forward inside of organizations and turning teams around. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, Lynnette, you mentioned, so when we talk about leading transformation, we know that in finance, 18% of the C-suite right now, C-suite roles in finance are held by women. And that just shows that, we have this ongoing challenge of representation in executive positions in finance. What are you seeing in the industry that you're in right now, maybe in the workplace, or what are some trends that you're seeing that's helping to shift that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's unfortunate, right? I think there when I first entered the workforce, I was in an industry. It was like I said, unusual to be a woman. I was the only woman running through the analyst program initially. So there were nothing but men around me all day long, unless you were an administrative assistant.
Mm,
And so there were those things that people just assumed you were somebody's assistant if you were a woman, right? And so you had to kind of fight that. I would say I started to see a significant shift around that like 2010
mm,
timeframe, where now I'm starting to see more. When I walk in a room, I'm not the only woman. There
mm,
are other women there as well, and some days I come in the office and it's only women around the table, which is really cool. It's a very I think people are just, it's normalizing, right? That there's not this big thing of, oh my gosh, we have a woman. But I also think women are hard on each other. So
mm.
once they get through
Well,
that
wait a minute.
glass
Wait, let's
ceiling,
dig into that a little
I
bit,
know,
Lynette.
right?
That's surprising because we're nurturers. We're supposed to be nurturers.
That's
So
right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue down that.
No, you're right. It's you wouldn't expect it. You would think the women would be kind of reaching down and pulling up the next one, but if you're the first one through that glass ceiling, I do think there's some, that makes you special, right? And so the more
Mm,
women that are standing next to you, you're not that special anymore, right? And ultimately you want to get to that. This is no big deal. We're not special. There's an equal amount of women and men in the C-suite.
mm,
But I think that very first group, yeah, some of them, they're tough and they expect you to make, like, don't mess up, because I had to work hard to get here and overcome a lot of obstacles. So don't mess that up, right?
mm.
The next person that comes through. And so because it's kind of the mom in us, and a little bit like, hey, young man, young lady, I taught you good manners and you better use those manners, right? Do not make me look bad, right? Like I think there's a little bit of that going on, and um men do it in a different way, right? Men compete in a different way, but it's a type of competitiveness that I think it took a long time.
Mm.
Like, it took that next wave of people coming up it through to kind of change that up a little bit.
It's
So I still, and so I think it's an evolution, and we just have to keep, we have to keep working at it, and we have to, give people opportunities. And I tell my team all the time, everybody's going to get an opportunity to kind of show themselves, show what they can do, and to try something new, and to do it in a way that you feel safe doing it, right? Where you can make a mistake. We're not going to limit who gets the opportunity, because that just fosters other kinds of discontent. So everybody's going to get it. It's like, it's not pie, right? It just doesn't mean that if one person gets a slice, that there's no slice for anybody else. There's always the next opportunity, and everybody will get a shot at it.
so it sounds
Um,
like this is like a mindset behavioral, well, maybe it's self-awareness because maybe if you were the first, you've got the first or the only thing going on, you
yeah.
may not be aware that you aren't sending the elevator back down for other women. You may not be aware that you have a standard for which you're not holding your men to. You may not be aware that you really like being special, and so you're kind of got your elbows out for other women.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I
So
think, well,
some of those,
you might.
You
You
know,
might
we
be
like
onto something. I don't know. I have
the
been
mean girl thing. That's what kind
kinda,
of like
yeah.
that, right?
It's odd, right? But I do think it's shifting. I do think it's really shifting. And that's wonderful, right? I think, if I look at the young women coming into the workforce today, right? They come in so much more self-confident and I think prepared
We do.
than
Go ahead.
when I came in. Because they're also, and this is also thanks to the men, right? Like, thank you to the men out there. They're
Yes.
raising strong daughters, right? They're raising daughters and coaching them through, like, how to navigate politics a little bit more, right? That political environment. So shout out to the men, because
Yes.
they're so important, right? They're so important. And I always say, say if you've got daughters and you say nothing, then that's not a good thing. That's not helpful. Like, lean in, right? And the men that lean in have really strong, like, they just raise strong women that are just go-getters and whatever they want to do in life. It doesn't matter, but they navigate, I think, the corporate world much better than, in the generation when I came in, right?
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you talk about the next generation. So I think there's two very important things to look at. The five generations in the workplace now. Just because the next generation is confident, there's a difference between conscious competence, the competency, right? And
Yeah.
and this those that have been doing it a long time, the experience that you bring can't be poo-pooed. So let's dig into preparedness a little bit. And what areas are you noticing like the gap? And I'll give you a statistic here. So when we
Yeah.
start to think about the PMI talent triangle, they've changed things, the ways of working, power skills, and business acumen. And what I hear you say is that, yeah, women are coming in, they got the business acumen. They have that, and they may have maybe some of those technical skills, right? Some of the ways of working. But where are you noticing some of the gaps around some of those power skills? Because, 30% of project management, program management, leadership roles are held by women, and you're one
Yeah.
of them, right? At the
Yeah.
very senior top of house. So what are you noticing that we can help the next generation in terms of preparedness? They have the confidence, but what else do they need?
Yeah, they have confidence and they have some skills. I don't know if they have as many hard project management skills as they need. I think some of that's experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think when I look at those teams, that sort of that idea of conflict management or
Mm-hmm.
juggling the needs of multiple stakeholders, that that's that is some tactics, but mostly like life experience, right? It's the soft skills. And I think women are the women coming in today. They have some strong technicals, but it's that soft. So how do I navigate these two C-suite individuals who disagree about the path forward, and I'm the one that has to facilitate that between it to get us moving forward. And that managing, it's more than managing up. It's like a high conflict with some politics thrown in of how do you get over that hump and get people moving. And I think that's the gap. And I also think, the man or woman coming into the workforce today expects to move up rapidly up that ladder, right? There's none of this like paying their dues. They actually kind of think that going to college was their dues. And so, yeah, and I can understand why, because they've worked hard and they've had, but that's, in the real world, in the corporate world, they want to see you gain that experience first. And so I think that patience isn't there. And so learning that patience, learning those soft skills of negotiation and facilitation between people that have way more power than you every day, but yet you're the one that has to get them to the table to have the conversation. Feels very awkward, because you're like, why me? Can't you two just figure that out? And the answer is no, right? That oftentimes they can't. It really takes somebody to bring them to the table. And that's something that you learn right over time and you have to get
Wow.
comfortable with.
It's if you're in an organization like some women are, a projectized organization with a
Right.
strong PMO, they have this structure. and you're trying to navigate that as an emerging leader. It sounds like I'm hearing you say, get really good at stakeholder engagement and management, get good at change, agility, and helping to create that in your organization, and also be humble and curious. What else would you add to that list?
Oh goodness,
I was,
yeah, I think you've hit some of the big ones because those are soft skills that, saying get better at it. Oftentimes there's not a formula to get better at it necessarily. I mean, there are certain tools that you can use to step through things like some of the ed car work, but it takes some bumps and bruises
oh
and
yeah.
feeling like, oh, I got squashed today from both sides. That is, sometimes it just takes that experience going, oh, I'm not going to approach it that way again. And then sometimes you have to approach it the same way again, because it's not that the approach was wrong. It was that the moment, or the reading of the room, or it wasn't exactly the right time to bring a certain thing up, figuring that out. And it's experience, right? It's working through that experience and continuing. And I say to people, continuing to learn the technicals, right? So you have your PMP, then now go get your Agile certification. Do you have your Lean Six Sigma certification? Do you have your change management or org development certification? Or if you want to do rapid design, do you have your design thinking certification for a rapid, right, client journey focused? So there's always the next thing that will help you along the way. And at the same time, you also have to understand the business that you're working in. I find the best project program portfolio managers in this space have all of those technical skills. They have the soft people skills, and they understand enough about the business to ask really good questions. And so asking those good questions to uncover the thing that you thought you knew, but you realize you really didn't know, right? Like something isn't quite right, and just asking the right questions to get the information you need to be able to unstick something, or to really make an impact, make a design decision that then brings you success. So good question asking, continuous learning. And remember, it's a people business. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, it's a people business.
I love it.
Um,
There's a resource. I don't know if you've ever read this book by Dr. Mary Lee Adams. She's taught at American University Organizational Studies, and she wrote a book called "Change Your Questions, Change Your Life." Change your questions, change your results. And she, for years, had this sort of theory that if we got really curious and asked questions that we thought we had the answers to, the outcomes could be dramatically different. And so the thought is, to check your assumptions, to make sure that you're not in what she calls the judger pit, meaning that you've already judged, and when organizations embrace this kind of curiosity, and they have this cultural curiosity, the outcomes for people become dramatically different. And her theory works in the home front. She's done numerous studies and works with numerous organizations. And I just share that to sort of validate what you were saying. If anybody is watching, that book by Dr. Mary Lee Adams really speaks to, if you want to know how to do what Lynnette just said, I would encourage you to read the book, take one of her classes, and it will change your life for sure.
yeah.
It will change your
Sometimes I think just saying to somebody, tell me more about that. Like, they'll come with something that they're very certain about, and it's like, tell me more. And as they tell you more, you realize that, maybe what you first thought it isn't exactly what you thought, right? And so digging into that next level. But I agree with that. Good questions and asking good questions is hard, and it's a skill. If you can learn it, I think you're a step ahead.
Well, thank you so much. I think you've shared a lot of great insights, but as we start to think about shortening the leadership journey, you've talked about what that looks like, the next generation, their hunger for forward momentum. And one of the insights I'm hearing you say is you need experience. So you have to stay somewhere long enough to gain useful experience that you can build upon.
Yeah.
Moving quickly just to get the next title while that may get you more money and another title doesn't necessarily get you the kind of experience to make an impact on your organization.
I
So
think
I'm
that's
I'm
right. Yeah.
I'm curious, what are you noticing in terms of trends, maybe where you are, where some of your friends and peers are, that is fast tracking the development of people? Are there some programs and components and programs that you're seeing that's
Uh,
innovative?
yeah, I'm definitely, so I'm seeing a couple things. I'm seeing this recognition that going outside the firm and hiring in talent is costly, right? And takes a lot of time. So if you're nurturing the people inside your organization and you're doing it in a good solid way, those individuals could move across your organization and up your, up and down the chain and across and really add value long term. You can give them that next thing to learn. So, but you have to be paying attention.
Mm,
And so as a manager, I would say I think we're spending more time, like, personally as a leader, really understanding people's aspirations, right? Your career is yours to own, but if I know that somebody really, really has an interest to work in a group that's outside of my own, I figure out a way to help them make those contacts and get that experience, right? And to make the connections and to have an opportunity. The other thing I'm seeing is, inside of a lot of firms now, people acknowledge that having resource groups, like groups of people who have, if like-minded or have similar interests, come together, not only is it good for them, but it's good for the rest of the organization as they share
mm,
out their experiences and their stories and the things that are unique to them. And I think of organizations like the Pride organization or Valor for our veterans, or some of our communities, the Black Resource Group. We have a Latinx team where I'm at. We look at Pan Asian groups. We celebrate the fact that things are different. We bring care, we have a group for caregivers, and so if you're curious and you kind of follow those groups, you get these, sometimes you get invites for really cool events, but oftentimes you get these perspectives that come out once a month or so of people talking about what's going on, something that's unique in their life or their community, that gives you just that little bit of extra understanding that can make all the difference as you're nurturing the next leader,
mm,
right? Things to think about, things to be aware of, things to, right? It's really, and I find those, I think that those are some of the best ways to just self-educate yourself about what's
mm,
going on and what are people thinking and what are they experiencing. Why is their experience different than yours?
mm,
I think that's huge. So I see that. I also see leadership development programs in a very different way. I see people having the opportunity to work across the firm in like a rotational program,
mm,
which gives people insights into different parts of an organization, but also gives you insights into different sort of subcultures within an organization. And so it really, really gives you the sense of, here, this is the direction I want to go, or, ooh, that's not for me. I need to go. I need to take a different path. I think all of that's in play. Ultimately, though, if we want to make a difference, if we want to be as productive and as we can for our organization, to be as thoughtful and as, spot on as we can be for our clients, you have to have a diverse team, right? That
mm,
brings all the perspectives. We're a diverse society. So if you don't have all of those perspectives, even about the most boring topic, but getting all those different perspectives, you are missing something. And that will ultimately trip you up once you take your product into the market. So I think just teaching people to really pay attention, right, to the things that are different and really learn to absorb it and enjoy the absorption, right?
mm.
That's the important thing.
The joy of learning and cultural
Joy of learning.
curiosity. But you know what? You took the lid off of something, so I'm going to go here with you.
Go ahead.
The threat of the end of DE&I initiatives in some organizations is causing fear in others.
Yeah.
And what I just heard you say is that organizations, if we want to develop the next generation of leaders, we need to double down on those initiatives, regardless of what you call it. So
Yeah, I
what are
don't
your
think it
thoughts?
matters what you call it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's inclusion. It's like, or can I say open your eyes? Like open your eyes, pick up your head and look around, right? Right? I'm going to call it the open your eyes movement. Yeah, you cannot, we're just humans. So we know what we've experienced individually, and we look at the world through that lens, through those experiences. And we tend to think that, well, everybody grew up that way or everybody had that experience, and it's just not true. So until you can kind of look at it from different angles and through different lenses, you can't really see what's going on. I've explained this to somebody once. Look at there's a scene in a movie called National Treasure, and they're looking for some lost treasure, and they get a clue, and they need to go find a pair of glasses, and they find this pair of glasses in Philadelphia, under the Liberty Bell, and they're Benjamin Franklin's glasses, and they have three different colored lenses. And you can move the lenses up and down. And as you look through the clear lens, you just see words on a paper. As you drop down the next color, yellow or something, you see something new. You actually see a picture around that gives you a clue. And it's not until you drop the third lens down that you see the whole clue. And I would argue that's exactly what this is. Like, you need to look at those different perspectives to be able to see the whole clue and to see the whole problem that needs to be solved. Till
I'm
you do that, you're still running around, right?
I'm
Trying to figure it
stealing
all
that
out.
illustration for one of my talks.
That's what
Yeah.
you got it.
Oh, I'm going back. I'm going to totally take that. I think that really that sums it up in terms of the need and obviously where you're working, they're doubling down on those initiatives. Are you noticing
Absolutely.
like stillness or are you noticing still forward momentum? What are you noticing as a trend that organizations and leaders need to look out for as the talk of diversity, equity, and inclusion rocks some teams?
Yeah. Well, we're moving forward. I think you have to move forward. I think there's a fear, though. There's an underlying, and I use the word fear because maybe that's not the right word. Maybe a discomfort,
Mm,
or people are unsure of what to make of the world, given some of the latest political views out there and changes.
hmm
And so there's a little bit of I think, not by the leadership, by the leadership, they seem quite committed, and at least where I'm at today, it's the employees that are feeling a little bit like, so what do I do with this? I'm not really sure. Do I continue to take that step forward, or just sit tight and wait to see what's going on? I think there are other trends that I'm seeing. It very much depends on the industry, I think, where you're seeing the leadership just take a step back, like, oh, okay, we're done with that. We don't have to talk about that anymore, right? And I think those are the groups that, while it may be expedient today, will suffer greatly, tomorrow or in the future, because people don't want to work where they're just where they can't be themselves and they can't bring their authentic self to work, and that plays through to their end customer, right? That becomes clear. And so I think it's a detriment if anybody who's pulling back. I don't know if you always have to double down, but I think you have to stay the course.
mm.
And whether you call it something else or not, that need for inclusion and being able to look through those different colored lenses to get to see the whole picture, that's not going away. That's just a fact of life. You're going to miss things if you don't get those different perspectives. And so I'd say stay the course more than
Mhm.
anything.
That is such sage advice. Thank you so much. And I appreciate I started this call, Lynnette, really celebrating the person you are. Now, in my business, when I work with customers, I talk about reinvigorating humanity in the workplace. I do believe that this is probably a really good time for us to reevaluate who we are being as leaders, as as much as what we are saying about what we should be doing. So who we are and addressing the people that show up every day and what they need. And that's what I'm hearing you say as well. Okay. This
Yeah.
goes back to you've given a lot of great advice. So looking back, you've made it. You're at that level. You're rocking and rolling. You are investing in the next generation. What would you tell your 25-year-old self now in retrospect, looking back, that we
Uh,
can give to the next generation coming?
I think when it's about people, right? Like you have to, if you want to be a great leader, even if you want to be a good leader, you actually have to like the people that work for you. Like you have to have an interest of some sort. And I know in the 70s and 80s it was much more like, this is about data, and don't bring any of your emotions from, don't bring anything from home. Like this is, get rid of that bottom 20% that's not performing and get rid of those out the door. And it's very, very cutthroat. And I would argue that even some of your poor, if you were to stack rank your employees and you say, look, I've got somebody who's just, we would label them a poor performer, they're not meeting expectations. I would argue there's a reason for that. It's either they don't like what they're doing, and if you don't like what you're doing, I don't care how good you are, you're going to be mediocre at it. So maybe you're not in the right spot. So how do I figure out what the right spot is and unlock that potential? Or maybe you don't have the skill sets that you need to be successful, and either you're not self-aware about that or you're embarrassed to admit it, right? There's that too. And if that's the case, then I need to take an interest in you and get to know you enough that I can figure out what it is that's holding you back, and either help you get to the right place if it's not, doing what my team is doing, or to get you the skills that you need to be successful. And some of those are just hard skills, or sometimes it's just pairing you up with somebody else on my team that can coach you through it, and that you feel safe to do that, right? And it's stretching people, like looking for the people that are looking for the next opportunity. They're not quite there yet, but you could stretch them into that with a little bit of support, and those end up to be your top performers. And over time, I have to say, I've been fortunate that I have been able to work with people who are A players, and I've been able to work with people who came in, not like this was their last chance and they got thrown onto my team, and we turned them around, and now and they're some of our top performers again, right? And they're getting praise, and it takes some time and it takes effort on both sides, but that's the key, effort on both sides, right?
I
And some
love
leaders
that.
will say, I don't have the time for that, but you have to make the time because it's very expensive to go out and try to find a replacement.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so as we're winding down, tell me what books are you reading, or would you recommend an emerging leader read?
So I'm an avid reader, so I've got a couple of things going on. I've got Think Again by Adam Grant, and it's how you think about sort of the power of knowing what you don't know,
Mm.
right? And to be clear about that, let's see, what else have I recently read that I really like? The Science of Stuck.
Mm.
So breaking through inertia. So when you think, oh, I'm stuck here, and I know I should probably do something else, but I'm not sure what that is. So sort of thinking that through, and that's really great for not just work problems, but that's important for, like, hey, what do I do next in my career? Because I don't see the next step. So how do I figure that out? So that's a good one. I'm trying to think what else I'm reading that's
Well, those two, I'm going to put them on the
yeah.
list for our readers.
Yeah,
As
please
you-
do. I think they're both good. And you're in different places in your career when you're reading both of those, I think. But I do think that's a good one. And then I always like one of my favorites, and I've got it next to me, so I'll hold it up. But The Fearless, or you probably can't see it because of my lighting, but it's called The Fearless Organization. And that's really about creating psychological safety in your workplace, where you can say to somebody, I disagree, or I see it differently, or I have a different perspective, and that's okay, right? Like it's okay to not agree with everything, right? And because if you're a leader, you want the people who see it differently to speak up. That one's by Amy Edmondson, by the way. And so those are the three big ones that I've been working through and finishing up, and I like it.
I can't wait to break those open. So
There you go.
as we come to a close, I want to thank you, Lynnette, for sharing your story, your journey, those precious insights with me as a woman on our show and with those who are watching and listening. And of course, it's not just about women, it's the men who are beside us, behind us, and in front of us that are supporting women. So this podcast is for all those and in between. As we bring our conversation to a close, one word, how would you define leadership, or what is it to you?
Innovative, I think.
I'm adding that to the list. Okay. Thank you very much, Lynnette. I love your vision. I appreciate your insights, and I value and appreciate you. As we wrap up today's enlightening conversation, your journey to transform finance and women is inspiring. At Virtual Partner, we're committed to transforming workplaces into hubs of innovation and inclusivity, and we're on a mission to gather insights and stories from women just like Lynnette from around the world so we can better understand the challenges and the triumphs they face. Now, your voice matters if you're watching, so we'd love to hear from you. Before we go, if you're inspired by what you heard today and you want to join us on our mission to empower women leaders, don't forget to participate in the She Rises survey. You can find it at virtualpartner.biz, How She Rises. Participating in our survey will help to shape future discussions and initiatives that are aimed at supporting women in leadership roles. I believe together we can create a future where equity prevails and every woman has an opportunity to rise. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of She Rises. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep rising. Until next time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of She Rises. I hope you found inspiration, insight, and the motivation to keep pushing forward on your leadership journey. Remember, success isn't about reaching the top. It's about lifting others as you rise. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other powerhouse women in your life. Follow me, Tiffany-O, and Virtual Partner for more resources on leadership, organizational growth, and creating workplaces where humanity thrives. Until next time, keep rising, keep leading, and keep making an impact.